want to share a testimony with you that I simply call the name Jesus Christ. In 1968, I was a young man living with my parents in Zaria. I was raised up under the American influence in the North American Baptist School. And my father was a senior military officer. And just next to our home in the barrack was what we called the Nigerian Army Physical Education Corps. And everybody that was to be trained in gymnastics, acrobatics, and all of that would have to come through that place. And I was one of those young boys that was trained. And I played hockey, basketball, volleyball for the Nigerian Army. When the next set of trainees were brought in to be trained, there was a young man, he was a sergeant in the army, and his dormitory was just next to my flat. And after the morning training, we were both going to our accommodation. I was going to my house, he was going to his dormitory. So I decided to pay him a visit since he was on his way. His own dormitory was just on the way to my own flat. And I got into his dormitory and I saw some magazines on his table. So I picked one of the magazines and I read that. It was so filled with lots and lots of scientific proofs about the existence of God, but it was all science. And that attracted me because I am also a scientist. And I love to prove everything mathematically or in the laboratory. So when I read those magazines, or that particular magazine, I couldn't finish it. I now asked this brother, or this man, this sergeant, to loan me the magazine. Let me take it and browse through it in my own flat. And I got there and I read. I couldn't sleep. I read it back to back and went through it again. It was amazing. The following day, after the training, I took the magazine back to him and I asked him to give me 2 more. And he gave me 2. And I finished the magazine. On the 3rd day, I took those ones back to him and I asked him for more. And he said, "It looks like you're very interested in this." And I said, "Yes." He gave me about 8 more to make 12. And that is for a whole year. And I finished those magazines within 2 days. I kind of found a hunger for that, kind of knowledge. It was powerful and it was teaching me how to control my life, control destiny, control people's lives. It was teaching me how that by certain mathematical combinations, you could actually activate certain things in people's lives, especially your own life. And that attracted me so much. But I did not know that I was walking my way into danger. And this man said, since this is your goal and your dream, I want to introduce you to the Society of the Enlightened Ones. And in 1968, I joined the Society of the Enlightened Ones. Part of the attraction was that this man said to me, he asked me, what is your birthday? He said he doesn't want to know the year, just the date and the month. And I told him, and he picked up a book. It was looking like the regular family Bible that we had in our home. But this book was called the Mysteries Book of Life. And so he opened to my date of birth and handed the book to me. And I was reading. I read my whole history, how I was conceived, everything that happened in my past, which my mother told me, some of them so deep secrets. But I read everything in that book. It was as if the book was coming alive. It was actually flipping the pages by itself. Once I got to the end of the page, it will flip by itself. It was scrolling by itself. And I started reading my future. This book told me everything about my future. It was beautiful, but at the same time, it was scary. Who could this be to know me this much and this well? But I was already hooked because I loved it. It fitted into my intellect. And I did not realize that I was already conscripted into membership. It was so subtle. There was no signing of anything. But I didn't realize that some of the dreams I started having, learning how to fly, learning how to control the air around me, that I could actually kick the air and I would lift about 2 feet in the air. And I will kick again and I go higher. And I kick again and I go higher. It got to the point that the speed of my gliding, to glide from place to place, I was moving at such high speed, very, very high speed. One day, I laid down on my bed and I simply received a summons. Get up, you are needed for a meeting. And as I got up, my body was down, but my soul had projected. And I glided from the earth to the moon where the meeting took place or was to take place. Took me about 7 minutes. That's to tell you how interesting the spirit life is. It took me just about 7 minutes to glide from the earth to the moon. When I got to the moon, seated there, I know the crux. I know how the surface of the moon is, how it feels. The moment I got there, the meeting was like a dining table setting. So there was a head table. There was another person seated next to my left, and I was here. Then another person to the to my right, then two people opposite me. So the guy that was seated directly opposite me said this: in this place, we don't call his name. In this place, we don't call his name. And I was curious. Who are you talking about? And he said, we don't call his name. So I said, if you don't tell me, what if I end up calling his name? He said, we don't call his name. So he now said, we sometimes refer to him as the greatest Grand Master. And I knew the title Grand Master, but I did not know that there was another one called the greatest Grand Master. So the person that was to my left at the head table, I recognized him. Nobody needed to tell me. You see, communication in the spirit is not done with the opening of the mouth. It is by the thought. The moment you think, the other person at the same frequency can actually know exactly what you're saying. So I looked to the head table and I said to that person whom I recognized to be Lucifer, and I said to him, I thought you were the greatest. Because at that point I was already convinced from all the things I read in the magazine that he was the greatest. So is there another person being called the greatest Grandmaster? He looked at me directly without one single word, said to me, we know who the greatest is. And I said, but if you are not the greatest, then who is this greatest? And he never said one more word. But the person seated opposite me said again, we sometimes refer to him as the righteous one. At the mention of that word, righteous one, my mind went back to Sunday school. And I knew that there was only one person introduced to me as the righteous one. And that is the Lord Jesus Christ. But I wasn't very sure. Now, at this point, 2 years had already gone by when this particular incident took place. So this was 1970 now. And so I asked the man opposite me, what is his name? And he said, I have told you, in this place, we don't call his name. So I said, is it? And I called the name, Jesus. There was an explosion. It was so powerful, so strong, that I could only compare it with the explosion in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But honestly, it was much, much stronger than that. The meeting came to an end without ending. What took me 7 minutes to arrive at, I got back to my bed in less than a second. The explosion was so great. When I got back to my bed, I started panting for breath and was asking myself, so what just happened? What just happened? In that shock, while thinking about what happened, suddenly there was another summons. The summons and the meeting took place in Calabar. And we were about 200 feet in the air in Calabar, standing on the air. And this man said to me, we told you we don't call his name. We told you we don't call his name. And I said, you still haven't told me who. Tell me who, because I didn't realize what I did. I did not know. And I said to him, tell me so that I don't call the name. And he said, we don't call his name. I've told you, you can only refer to him as the righteous one. And I said, but the only righteous one I know is Jesus. And boom, another explosion. The next meeting, the next summons, which was just few minutes after that, was directly above my house. Just about 100 feet above my house. That was where the meeting took place. And they said to me, in fact, it was Lucy Defar that now said to me, I have discovered that you have a new light, and we will not allow you to live. You will die. So that very night, I was sentenced to death. And they told me that we give you 6 years and you will die. That very moment, a disease was shot to my heart. From that time, from 1970, I started falling sick. Every year, I will be bedridden for 3 months. And I'll be admitted in the 3rd Medical Regimental Service of the Nigerian Army Depot in Zaria. It was called the 3MRS. It was a military hospital. And I will be admitted there. All kinds of tests were done, but nobody could decipher what was the problem with me. But my heart, my health was failing. And until the 6th year, this was 1976. But by 1974, I had an encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ. And I surrendered my life to the Lord Jesus in Sokoto. Because we went to Sokoto along with my mentor, Uncle Balamila, to play at the Argungu Fishing Festival. And the encounter with the Lord Jesus was so fascinating, but my whole life was changed. When I got back to Zaria from Sokoto, I went and submitted myself to Uncle Bayo Famanure, who at that time was my teacher. This was 1974. And I had already started reading mechanical engineering at that time. So he now taught me how to be a missionary. But the disease was still there. And I still had 2 more years to live. By April of 1976, I was bedridden again. At that time, I had already emaciated, no energy in me. Everything was gone. But then the military had requested for a specialist. And so there was this specialist doctor that was brought in from the Philippines. And he was to check the senior military officers for 3 months. And I was one of the people fortunate for this man to come, look at. When he came, he was with me. I was plugged with all kinds of gadgets. You have not experienced pain until your heart is exposed. My heart was rotten. It was melting away and disappearing. And this was the only man that could decipher what was my problem. Whatever it was called, I honestly don't know, even up till today. But this was the doctor. After being with me for about 4 weeks, my father came to see me in the hospital. I was in the ICU, and the ICU in the barrack had only 2 beds. So my father parked directly at the door, the back door of the entrance into the ICU. So he walked in when the doctor was there looking at me. And so he held my father's hand and pulled him away just about 2 meters away from my bed. There were 6 pillows that were used to support me. And I heard him say to my father, "Major Paul, I don't think your son is going to make it through the next 2 weeks. He's going to die." And he said, "It's better to take him back home, let him go and die at home, than for him to die in the hospital." For the first time, my father, whom I trusted his strength, my father was the best marksman in the Nigerian army for 18 years. No one could beat his record. If you give him 19 bullets, he will give you 19 bull's eye. He never missed it. My father would say to me, "If you hold this tin of milk in your hand, I will shoot it off using a Mark II rifle with very tiny pellets from about 25 yards. My father will shoot it off my hand. He was that good, and he trained me. But I saw this strong man for the first time. His face collapsed, and I saw tears coming from his left eye. And I said, "Wow, this is it." But I became very angry. And so I started unplugging all the gadgets on my body and used one of the pillows. I pushed one of the pillows down. I struggled to turn myself around until I fell off the bed. And I knelt down and I said, "God, if you exist, this is your time to show up." And I said to the Lord, "Am I such a terrible sinner that when you kill me, you will lift your hands in heaven and shout, 'Ah, I have finally killed him'?" And I said to the Lord, "Why not try me and see? Give me a chance to live my life to the fullest, and you will see what I will do to your name." And I took myself off, went through the back door of the ICU. My father's tiny mini Morris, the military car, was parked there. I struggled and I got into the car. It had no doors. So I got in there. My father came without asking questions. Now, what caught my attention is this. The 2 weeks that this doctor gave me fell at exactly the date that those people gave me, which was June 13th. Exact. So I was asking the question, could he also be? You see, these guys are so organized. So the first week that I got home, my bed was removed from my flat and brought to my father's living room, and that was where I laid. I'll tell my mom, "I'm tired of lying down." There was sores everywhere. Discomfort was too much. Pain, just the twitching of my finger was pain in my brain. The first week came and went by. The second week came, and honestly, I heard my uncle and my father discussing my coughing. planning my funeral with me alive. The second week came and passed. The third week came and passed. The fourth week came and passed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly 48 years. Exactly 48 years. And my 2 weeks has not expired. But let me tell you people, nobody has the right to tell you what God has not said about your life. Who are you? Because you think you have some powers and you will want to peg a person's life? My mother never asked me, how come you're still alive? My father never asked me, how come you're still alive? Until I sang it. I am serving a living God. His name is Jesus Christ. He died and rose and gave me victory. I have victory. There was a time in my life, I'm talking about 1976. I had been sick for 6 years, and the doctor told my father, your son has got 2 more weeks to live. But I said, Jesus, you died.
Yes, you died.
I say, Jesus, you died.
Yes, you died.
Jesus, you died.
Yes, you died.
Jesus, you died.
Yes, you died.
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 Died. Died. Ooh, ooh, you died. 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 Ooh, ooh, you died. Died.